5:58 p.m. and this was an open call with a hang-up. So in other words, someone called 911 and there was nothing said, and then there was a hang-up. 2 minutes later at 6 o'clock, we received another call, and it was at the same address in the 7900 block of Appomattox Drive. This one was titled as a nature unknown, and it was reported that in the background there was a voice talking about someone trying to blow up the house. So we had officers en route to this call. Again, nature unknown, someone calling in, open line with comments about someone trying to blow up a house. Our officers arrived on scene 8 minutes later. We had 2 officers arrive on scene, and what can be seen on their in-car cameras, they actually stop and get out of their vehicles, and they stopped several houses from the actual house where the call came from. As they're walking towards the house where the call originated, you can see a white Dodge Charger, I believe, that backs out of the driveway. You can hear the tire squeal. The vehicle then turns in the direction of the officers, accelerates at a high rate of speed, and drives directly at both officers. Both officers realized the threat and fortunately were able to jump out of the way. They did have to jump into the lawn to avoid being struck by this vehicle. The vehicle then is out of the frame of the video camera. The officers then hurriedly head back to their car while reporting over the error that they had just been, someone attempted to run them over. As they get in their cars, you can see that same vehicle traveling back the other direction, again at a high rate of speed. So at this point, our officers go in pursuit of this vehicle, again, that had attempted to run them both over. It is immediately requested that we get our air unit up and a canine to assist with this pursuit because, again, at this point, we have no idea what the original call was that we were responding to. Our officers just know that someone tried to run them over in this incident. This pursuit went on for several minutes throughout the neighborhood that we're in. There were several changes of directions, and the suspect driver actually crashed into another car at the intersection of Manchaca and William Cannon up the road, and then continued on. Our officers remained in pursuit. The suspect vehicle then turned around and headed back southbound, and at this point we actually terminated the pursuit based on the actions that had already taken place, and we were still trying to determine what the original call was that we had been requested for. As this was all happening, we had several officers heading into this neighborhood because, again, we had reported the incident that occurred where this individual tried to run over 2 officers. We had the pursuit, we had the crash that they fled the scene from. Multiple officers were responding. One of our officers responded and was on Manchaca down the road from us, and they were attempting to set up spike strips to try and put this pursuit to a stop. What you can see on that officer's in-car camera is you can see the suspect vehicle heading southbound on Manchaca at a high rate of speed, and again, the vehicle crosses over the center line in an attempt to run this officer over. And fortunately, again, this officer was able to jump out of the way and not get struck by this vehicle. The vehicle then goes maybe 100 yards, it's out of control, it hits the curb, it crashes into a telephone pole, and it ends up in a yard right across the street. At this point, the officer broadcasts that the suspect attempted to run him over, and he then begins to approach the vehicle, realizing that it is most likely disabled, and again, we have to find out what's going on. This individual has tried to kill 3 police officers now, and again, came from the house where we still had some type of an unknown disturbance. The officer gets up to the vehicle, and he is at the back of the vehicle. He is giving commands to the driver to show their hands, to put their hands out. Multiple commands are being given. Based on the positioning of the officer's vehicle, again, the officer was here to set up spike strips, and his vehicle was facing northbound. The incident occurred on the other side of the vehicle, so at this point we do not have any video that captures this incident, nor do I think we will once we review everything based on the positions. What the officer has told us, and our preliminary understanding, is that he was at the rear of that vehicle and he was giving commands to this driver that had just attempted to run him and others over to show their hands, to get out of the vehicle. The driver ultimately steps out of the vehicle with her back to our officer. He is again giving commands to show their hands. The subject at that point starts looking to the left where there's a wooded area. The officer is at this point thinking there may be a foot pursuit, but ultimately she ends up turning around. The officer said she raises her right hand above her shoulder and has a knife in her hand and begins to come at him at a fast rate of speed, at which point he gives multiple commands to drop, 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 and ultimately he fires his weapon once she is so close that he felt his life was in danger. At that point, he broadcasts that shots were fired, and again immediately begins to render medical assistance. The subject did die ultimately of those wounds on the scene, even though our officers and EMS provided medical care. What also was happening simultaneously, after the individual tried to run over the officer and he was approaching the vehicle, making contact, what is on our 911 tapes, there is a broadcast from our dispatch that is advising the officer that they have received a call that this individual is attempting to commit suicide by cop. They broadcast that saying that she is attempting to commit suicide by cop, and it is 2 seconds later that our officer broadcasts that shots have been fired. So in the time it would take for him to pull out his radio and broadcast that shots had been fired, these were likely all happening in the very same moment that broadcast was being put out as the encounter took place. So that's what the circumstances that we have right now are. That's what we understand has happened to this point. This is still a very active scene, as you all can tell. We haven't even begun to process the scene itself. So that will take several hours into the night to where we will have to go in there and again process the scene, search the scene, and locate whatever evidence that we can within that scene. There are multiple investigations going on, as in all officer-involved shootings. The district attorney's office is here, as I mentioned earlier, and they are conducting an investigation along with our special investigations unit to determine the legality of the actions here from a criminal perspective. And then our own internal affairs division is here, along with the Office of Police Monitor, and they're conducting an internal investigation for administrative compliance with policies. So those are the investigations that are ongoing. The officer involved in this incident has been with the Austin Police Department for 4 years, and he will be placed on administrative leave, as is our standard practice in all officer-involved shootings. And again, I just want to close with the same thing that I opened with, that although the circumstances tonight were tragic and although this individual attempted to run over several police officers, it is with a heavy heart that I do give the deepest condolences to her family. Again, a young woman, 25 years old, with just really tragic circumstances tonight. But that's what has got us here today. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions. Someone called into 911 and reported that, and that will be part of what we'll understand. Did that call come from the house where we were originally responding to, but someone called in to report that.
Is this something that this woman said she was going to do, or was this speculation from someone who knew her?
Again, that's part of the ongoing investigation. What we know is we know that we received a call from someone that was stating that that was what she was intending to do tonight.
With the call coming in that there was someone trying to blow up the house, did you guys find any evidence of explosives or anything to indicate that that was an actual call or an actual problem?
I have no information that there was ever any attempt to blow up a residence, no.
Are all the officers okay?
Our officers involved in this incident are okay. Several of them, obviously they had to get out of the way of the moving vehicle and all of that, but they are okay physically. Obviously, an incident like this weighs heavily on officers. This is not anything that any officer ever wants to be involved in. And so outside of the trauma that they will too go through physically, though, they did not fortunately sustain any injuries beyond that.
What about the driver of the other car that she crashed into over at William Cannon? Do you know their condition?
I don't have the condition on that driver. I've not been made aware that there were serious injuries, though.
How many officers total were involved when the shooting occurred?
There was only one officer involved when the shooting occurred.
Did that car ever actually hit the spike strips?
I do not believe that vehicle hit the spike strips. That will be uncovered as we further investigate this to determine whether there's any damage to the tires. But at this point, I don't have any information that they did hit the spike strips.
Do you know how many shots were fired by the officer at the suspect?
I do not. That'll be part of the ongoing investigation.
She came at him with a knife.
That is what he reported, yes.
Can you describe the knife?
I've not seen the knife. As I said, we're still processing the scene right now. We're still working to recover evidence.
Was the knife recovered though?
We have not recovered any evidence yet. We're still processing that scene. We've talked to you before about how we process this. We go in with video equipment and photography equipment and all that. We want to document the scene before we really go in there to do any disturbing. And so other than just a preliminary look at the scene to see what we can see right away, we have not yet done a thorough search.
Can
Would
you
that be
clarify?
why the crime scene is so big? It started at William Cannon and goes all the way up to the street up here?
Sure. Well, again, the pursuit came all through this corridor here. The crash that she was involved with up at William Cannon, and then of course she came back down here. So that's why we just blocked off a large portion of the street, just not knowing where all of the evidence may be.
Where's the body right now?
Any questions from the
Can you
media?
clarify how the officer's car was, you said facing northbound on this street, and then that's why the dash cam video was.
Yeah, so the officer's vehicle is basically facing northbound, and that's why we can see her when she's traveling southbound cross over and attempt to strike him. But then the incident occurred south of the vehicle, so the camera was not positioned in a place to capture that.
We'll take one last question.
We did see what looked like civilian cars in the crime scene. Can you explain what they were doing there? Were they witnesses? Have they been allowed to go home?
So we do have civilian witnesses to this. I believe we have 3 witnesses that I'm aware of. And at this point, we believe they may have had a really good view of what happened. I'm not sure if that's one of their vehicles or not, but I do know that we did have civilians that were here and that witnessed some part of the incidents. And so they have already been transported to police headquarters at the very onset of this investigation to give their statements.
The conversation at the beginning with the attempt to blow up the house, was that like a family disturbance that started there?
We don't know. That's just where we were originally dispatched to based on the 911 call, and it was just an open line, and that was heard in the background. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I was just curious, do you guys know how long the street will be closed for people who live back there?
I know, everybody was talking. It kind of, I was like, oh, keep focused, keep focused.
Would you mind sending me those notes though that you just typed real quick? Okay, thanks. Hey, sorry. Hey Paul, we gotta do a live hit in about 5 minutes.
That's what they didn't want me filming Cassidy from far, and they came over and I said, you don't have the right people messaging me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll see if I can find a more specific location. I'll send that to you. But that would be cool to
I'm not saying homelessness doesn't exist. I'm saying the city has a legal responsibility. It's still trying to say our story was yellow journalism and that it didn't exist. And
That's why I stopped talking.
Like,
That's why I stopped listening.
I saw it with my eyes, man. With the wrong spot. It's definitely still there. Oh, so it's not a live pick, it's a live shot?
Right.
Okay.
This all began with 911
Can you scoot over this way a little bit?
hang up,
Thanks.
and then a call that someone was trying to blow their house up. Shortly after that, police officers arrived on scene and they saw a white Camaro speed off from the driveway of the house and tried to run several officers over. Make sure that's right. Oh, not a Camaro, Charger. White Charger. Okay. Shortly after that is, damn it. Shortly after that is when the car chase began and the driver of the Charger got into an accident off of William Cannon and Manchac. The car kept going and eventually hit a curb then a telephone pole, and that's when the driver got out of the car and ran at officers with a knife. Officers did fire shots, and a 25-year-old Hispanic woman died. Interesting to note, the District Attorney Margaret Moore was here on scene along with personnel from the Civil Rights Division of the District Attorney's Office, who will be conducting a full investigation of the incident. Huh? 29:45. This all began with a 911 hang up and then a call that someone was trying to...
Hey, you need to dial IFBA.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
She's doing that right now.
Hi, sorry, I forgot. Hi. Okay. I'm hoping this time's out to that. I'm gonna try to talk fast. Eventually hit. I'm not gonna remember to say all that. Paul? Perfect. Okay. So as soon as you hear me say house blow up, then I'm gonna step out of the way and then you're just gonna begin to zoom in.
Okay.
So there's no VO on this one. You're not telling him he's clear. He's like, hello, can I go? Oh, we're about a minute out. About 45 seconds. $15. That's right, Shannon. We just heard from Austin Police Chief Brian Manley, who tells us this all started with a 911 hang-up call that someone said that they were going to blow up their house. Now, shortly after that, the police officers arrived on scene and they saw a white Charger speed off from the driveway of the house, and the driver tried to run over several officers. Shortly after that is when a car chase began. The driver of the Charger got into an accident here off William Cannon and Manchac, kept going, eventually hit a pole, and that's when the driver got out of the car, ran at officers with a knife, and we know that a 25-year-old Hispanic woman died. And of course, we'll have any more updates for you online and on air on KXAN News Today. All right.
We done?
I believe so.